There is a moment, and most people miss it completely, where a generous person stops mid-sentence and changes their answer from what they actually want to what they think you need to hear. It doesn't arrive with fanfare. It doesn't come with visible sacrifice. It arrives quietly on a Wednesday afternoon while they're responding to a text message, when their thumbs pause over the keyboard and they delete "I'm not available" and replace it with "Of course, I'd love to help." By the time anyone notices the exhaustion in their eyes, the decision to abandon themselves was already made 6 months ago. And here is the part that nobody talks about. Generous people do not suddenly break. They erode, one yes at a time. One boundary skipped, one need postponed until later, that never comes. Here is what no one tells you about generosity. It is not always kindness. That is the first myth worth destroying. There is a difference between giving from overflow and giving from emptiness, between choosing to help and being unable to say no, between generosity and self-abandonment. And the distance between those two things is where people lose themselves completely. Neuroscience has demonstrated that the brain's reward centers, specifically the ventral striatum, light up when we engage in pro-social behavior. Giving feels good. It releases oxytocin, dopamine, and creates a sense of purpose. This is called the helper's high, and it is real. But here is what the research also shows. When giving becomes compulsive, when it shifts from choice to obligation, those same reward pathways start to misfire. A 2017 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who engage in excessive pro-social behavior, giving beyond their capacity, show markers of chronic stress indistinguishable from trauma responses. This is not selflessness. It is self-erasure. And the tragedy is that the world rewards it. We call them the reliable one, the one who always shows up. So generous. We hand them more weight while praising their ability to carry it. Generosity is not the same as availability. Generosity is a conscious choice made from a place of agency. Availability is a reflex trained by fear of disappointing others. Giving is not the same as rescuing. Giving acknowledges another person's capacity while offering support. Rescuing assumes they cannot function without your intervention and traps you both. Kindness is not the same as self-neglect. Kindness can include yourself in the circle of care. Self-neglect treats your own needs as less legitimate than anyone else's. Boundaries do not make you selfish. Boundaries make you sustainable. Saying no is not withholding love. Saying no is protecting the integrity of your yes. And here is the one that changes everything. Being needed is not the same as being valued. Being needed makes you useful. Being valued makes you irreplaceable. And generous people, because of how they have learned to measure their worth, often confuse the two. I call this the generosity collapse framework. It has 4 stages, and most people do not realize they are inside it until they reach stage 3. Stage 1 is voluntary giving. This is genuine generosity. You have something to offer, time, energy, resources, and you choose to share it. The key word is choose. Your nervous system is calm. You can say yes, and you can say no. Both feel available to you. Stage 2 is obligatory giving, where the shift happens. Giving stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like a requirement. You say yes not because you want to, but because you fear what saying no will cost you. The approval, the relationship, the identity of being the good one. Your nervous system begins to register other people's needs as emergencies. Stage 3 is compensatory giving. Now you are giving to manage guilt, to make up for the no you said 3 weeks ago, to prove you are still worthy after setting a single boundary. Generosity becomes apology, and the more you give, the less it feels like enough. And stage 4 is depletion silence, where generous people disappear. Not dramatically, not with confrontation. They simply stop answering the phone, stop offering, stop showing up, because they have nothing left. And the silence is not cruelty, it is biological preservation. Most people only notice when someone reaches stage 4, but by then, the generous person has been suffering for years. Let me show you the specific behaviors that push generous people from stage 1 to stage 4. These are patterns so normalized that most people do not even recognize them as harmful. The first behavior is what psychologists call emotional outsourcing. This is when someone consistently brings their unprocessed emotions to you and expects you to manage them. They are anxious, so you become their stabilizer. They are angry, so you become their mediator. They are sad, so you become their constant cheerleader. From the outside, this looks like deep friendship, like trust, like being someone's safe person. But here is what it actually is. It is making you responsible for regulating a nervous system that is not your own. And the generous person, because of how their mirror neurons fire, because of how they have been conditioned to prioritize relational harmony, cannot not respond to that shift. They feel the distress as if it is theirs, so they absorb it, they process it, they carry it, and no one ever asks who is carrying yours. The second behavior is more subtle and arguably more damaging: conditional appreciation. This is when someone expresses gratitude for what you do but not for who you are. They thank you for solving their problem, for being available, for sacrificing your time. But they do not see you when you are not in service to them. You know this is happening when someone says, "I don't know what I'd do without you," but never asks, "How are you doing? What do you need?" The generous person begins to internalize a devastating equation. My value equals my usefulness. When I stop giving, I stop mattering. And so they keep giving. Past exhaustion, past resentment, past the point where giving has any joy left in it. Because stopping feels like disappearing. The third behavior is one that almost no one talks about: the rewriting of history in small increments. This happens when your generosity becomes so normalized that people forget it was ever a gift. You helped someone move 3 years ago, spent an entire Saturday carrying boxes up 4 flights of stairs. At the time, they were grateful. But now, when they recall the story, it becomes, "We moved into that apartment." The "we" erases you. Your labor becomes invisible infrastructure. You lent money that was never repaid. You covered shifts. You listened to the same crisis 5 times. You showed up at 2 a.m. And slowly, imperceptibly, these acts of service are recontextualized as what you do rather than what you chose to do. The generous person begins to notice this. They notice the language shift. They notice that their effort has been absorbed into the story as background, not foreground. And they begin to understand something devastating. The people they have sacrificed for do not see the sacrifice. They see the new baseline. And here is the part that breaks them. When a generous person finally sets a boundary, when they say, "I can't do that this time," the response is not understanding. It is shock, disappointment, sometimes even anger, because the people around them have grown accustomed to unconditional availability. And when that availability shifts, it does not register as "they need rest." It registers as "they are changing," or worse, "they are letting me down." Intention does not determine impact, and the impact of normalized generosity is that your limits become betrayals. Now let me take you inside the experience of someone in stage 3 or stage 4, because this is the part that no one sees. There is a specific kind of grief that happens when you realize you have been abandoning yourself in the name of loving others. It is not a loud grief. It does not come with catharsis. It is the quiet recognition that arrives at 11 p.m. on a random Thursday when you finally sit down after a day of solving everyone else's problems, and you realize you cannot remember the last time you did something just for yourself. Not self-care in the performative sense. Just something that made you feel like you still exist as a person, separate from your utility. By the time anyone notices the shift, the generous person becoming less available, less responsive, less present, they have already grieved it. They have already cried in the car on the way home from another obligation they did not want to attend. They have already lain awake at 3 a.m. doing the math on how much of their life belongs to other people. They have already imagined what it would feel like to just stop, to let the phone ring, to say, "I'm busy," and mean it. What looks like sudden withdrawal is actually the final stage of a process that has been happening internally for months, sometimes years. This is what I mean by ambiguous loss. They are grieving the version of themselves they abandoned, the boundaries they never set, the dreams they postponed indefinitely because someone else always needed something more urgent, the relationships where they showed up fully and were met with half-presence in return. They are grieving someone who is still standing right in front of the mirror every morning, themselves. And here is the cruelest part. They feel guilty about the grief, because generous people have been taught that their needs are optional, that wanting something for themselves is selfish, that rest is earned only after everyone else is taken care of, and everyone else is never fully taken care of. So they grieve in secret. They grieve while still saying yes. They grieve while maintaining the smile, the reliability, the identity everyone depends on, until one day they can't anymore. That is not the generous person failing. That is the generous person finally, desperately trying to survive. Now let's turn to the other side of this, because if you are someone who has watched a generous person slowly withdraw from your life and you cannot understand why, I need you to hear something. Their withdrawal is not about you being a bad person. Most people who benefit from someone's excessive generosity are not consciously exploiting them. They are simply accepting what is being offered. The problem is not that you asked. The problem is that they could not say no. But here is your responsibility. Pay attention to the pattern. Notice if someone is always the one who gives, always the one who adjusts, always the one who says it's fine when it clearly isn't. Notice if your relationship with them is built on their capacity to meet your needs, but lacks space for theirs. And if you realize that someone has been slowly disappearing, canceling plans, taking longer to respond, seeming distant, do not make it about you. Do not say, "You've changed," as an accusation. Because yes, they have changed. They have started choosing themselves. And that is not a betrayal. That is growth. Ask them what they need. And then, this is critical, do not make them convince you that their needs are legitimate. Do not negotiate. Do not guilt. Just listen and adjust. Because if you do not, you will lose them. Not to cruelty, not to anger, but to the quiet, permanent withdrawal that happens when someone realizes that staying costs more than leaving. And if you are a generous person watching your own withdrawal happen, if you recognize yourself in every stage of this framework, hear this. You are not broken for needing rest. You are not selfish for wanting reciprocity. You are not cold for setting boundaries. And you are not failing by choosing yourself. The voice in your head that says, "But they need me," is not wrong. People do need you. But need is not the same as love. And your presence in someone's life should be valued, not just utilized. You have spent so much of your life making sure other people are okay. And somewhere in that process, you learn to treat your own well-being as negotiable, as something that can wait, as less important than keeping the peace. It is not. Your needs are not the optional ones. Your boundaries are not the flexible ones. Your exhaustion is not the price of being loved. And the people who truly value you will not punish you for having limits. They will respect them. They will adjust. They will start showing up the way you have always shown up for them. And the ones who do not, they were never relating to you. They were relating to your function. Let them go. Tomorrow morning, I want you to try something simple but profound. Before you say yes to anything, a favor, a plan, a request, pause for 5 full seconds and ask yourself one question. Am I saying yes because I want to or because I am afraid of what will happen if I say no? If the answer is fear, your yes is not generosity. It is self-abandonment. And here is the script you can use when you need to say no but do not know how. I appreciate you thinking of me. I'm not able to take that on right now, but I hope you find the support you need. That's it. No elaborate justification, no apology for having limits, no counteroffer that still leaves you overextended. Just a clear, kind boundary. The first time you use it, it will feel brutal. It will feel selfish. It will feel like you are letting someone down. That feeling is not truth. That feeling is conditioning. And on the other side of that feeling is the life you have been postponing, the energy you have been rationing, the version of yourself who gives from overflow, not from emptiness. Here is what I need you to understand. The moment you stop treating your generosity as proof of your worth is the moment you begin to reclaim your life. Not because generosity is wrong, but because generosity without boundaries becomes self-erasure. And you were not put here to erase yourself. You were put here to live fully, give freely, and take up space unapologetically. To love people and still love yourself. To be kind without being consumed. The people who matter will not need you to be empty to prove you care. They will want you whole. And the ones who only valued your depletion were never yours to keep. This is not the end of your generosity. This is where it becomes sustainable. This is where it becomes real. This is where you stop giving yourself away and start giving from a place so full that it does not cost you to share it. That is not selfishness. That is sovereignty. Next video, we are going to talk about what happens when a generous person finally says no and why some relationships never survive it. Because the truth is, not everyone wants you to heal. Some people need you to stay small. And learning to identify who is who changes everything.